Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. In this video I'm going to show you how I painted a custom sculpted BSB for my Renegade Crowns army. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems, and offer custom items to suit your club, your event, or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description. Having recently finished the first 1,000 points of my Renegade Crowns and taken them to an event, I'm now ready to expand and take it up to 2,000 points. And a BSB was one of the things I had on my list. Now, coincidentally, just before this, Young Duke Kim from Kim's Talisman YouTube channel sent me a message and said I would absolutely love to sculpt a miniature for you, and definitely go and check his channel out and check out this video where you can see him sculpting this miniature that's going to be the topic of the painting video today. Young Duke is such a gentleman and he did such an amazing job on this miniature. I'm so excited to own it, and he even cut up a really expensive out of production miniature. Suleiman the Saracen, he's a mounted miniature as you can see there, and he's cut him up because I needed a BSB on foot. Young Duke will be joining me on the channel in March for a full interview where we talk about his channel and all of the work that he does on there. But again, please go and check out his work. It's just absolutely fantastic. So I'm here with this wonderful miniature and I need to add a banner. He wanted to leave it for me to add something that was suitable to work with my army. And rather than making a paper banner, something that he does extremely well and I don't do quite as well, I decided to go into my bits box and I found one of the standard Empire State Troop banners, and I thought it would be perfect for what I needed here. So I trimmed off the arm and started carving away some of the sort of the rough bits along the bottom, and then the plan was to drill into the bottom of the actual the pole part of the banner so I could fit that brass rod into it. Luckily I managed to do it without screwing it up or splitting the plastic. A really small hole drilled in there, only about 5 mils in. I didn't want to go too far because I was scared that I would split it. A little bit of super glue later on and it stuck on pretty easily, and he is ready to be primed. A standard black prime, and then I'm using a little bit of white through the airbrush to do a zenithal base coat, which is something I do nearly on all my miniatures. I really want to make sure that I'm making full use of this zenithal because I'm going to be painting with a lot of thin paints, a lot of glazes, a lot of army paint, to speed paints in the way I so often do on the channel, and I really like to make sure that the underpainting is of good quality so that I'm able to get the most out of them. That makes my highlighting a little bit easier later on. So after I've done my zenithal, I do some dry brushing as well, just to really pick out the extra detail on the miniature. Dry brushing so hard that I've even shook the camera. I'm just very light tickle here of the paint really. I don't want to smear it on any of the flat surfaces, just catching the edges on some of the fabrics so that it really boosts the edges of the highlights when I do those first layers of paint. And there he is, ready for the base coat. So I'm going to have some white on the miniature. I'm going to have a sepia kind of colour fabric and a very light sky blue as well, along with a little bit of yellow to tie it in with the Marienburg themes of my army. And I will have a spot colour of some reds as well, so he ties in with the army but also has his own character. And what I'm going to do with this paint job, or what I end up doing, is pretty much base coating everything before I go back and add the highlights. Sometimes you'll watch one of my videos and I will work on one colour at a time, but for this one it varies depending on what mood I'm in. I pretty much laid down all the base coats before I went back and highlighted. And the goal here for these initial base coats was to have really smooth coats that allow that underpainting to show through, to minimise the amount of highlighting I need to do after that. What I'm going to do now is pass you over to Young Duke, and he's going to explain what he did for the miniature, but I do recommend going to watch that full video tutorial.
Hey guys, it's Young Duke, and I am going to talk a little bit about the Araby BSB as Stuart asked me to explain the thought process behind it. And essentially, you guys know Stuart is working on an amazing Dog of War army, using quite a few elements from the original 5th edition Dogs of War range of miniatures. And when I saw him working on that project, I knew that it would be only fitting that he had an Araby model in his awesome collection. And many of you guys probably know the only official Araby miniature in the Red era of Games Workshop were Al Mukhtar's Desert Dogs and a Sheikh Yadash with his money cart. The only other miniature would be Suleiman the Saracen from the Bretonnian 5th edition range, and I knew Stuart would like this miniature. However, he is mounted on cavalry, so I did have to design him to be on foot, and that's a conversion I've always wanted to do, but never had a good enough reason to do until now. And thankfully, if you haven't seen my old Hammer Araby army, I would say I am fairly proficient at sculpting Araby models now. So to break down the model, I had to imagine him off this horse and just design everything that would make sense to the miniature. So I did start off by the boots, working up to his pants, and then had to cover most of it actually with the Araby cloth that he has under his armored cuirass. And even sculpting that section was quite a bit of a challenge, as the Araby armor on the chest plate is quite unique. And the second biggest hurdle was the sword. Suleiman holds it in both hands. Luckily, in my own Suleiman conversion, I knew where to cut, and I thought for Stuart's whole faction, his characters do have very grand and imposing positions, so I thought having this BSB in a relaxed, surveying the battlefield look would be very fitting. So I had to make sure I had all of the arms in a very realistic, relaxed pose, and I think I overall achieved that look. I'm really proud of how Suleiman turned out. This project really pushed my comfort zone for certain sections, but overall I'm really happy with how he turned out, and I do think he will fit really well in this Dogs of War / Renegade Crown army. And when I'm talking now, I hope you guys are enjoying what Stuart is painting this guy, as I've been really waiting for the past couple of weeks to see how he would match this Araby guy into his awesome color scheme.
So while Young Duke there has been filling you in on his thought process around building that miniature, you've been watching me hopefully paint some very thin layers on and really working with that underpaint, as I keep stressing. So when I'm using the contrast white paint, it is essentially a grey glaze, and just keeping it really thin. The same with the blue as well, working with all of that shadow that's there from the airbrushing. Moving on to red now for the spot colour. I thought it'd be perfect for the bandana around the waist and the tie around the top of the hat. And for a full list of the paints that I'm using in this video, I will post those on a post on my Patreon. It will be available to free users as well. Of course, if you want to have those paints without joining over to Patreon, etc., you can just pause the video at any point and take a note of them. I think I show every paint as I use it in this video, and apologies if I do forget to hold something up to camera. There's very little in the way of leather or strapping that's visible on the miniature. I'm just using one of my favourite sort of brown bases, which is the Cycle Brown contrast paint from Games Workshop. I'm just painting it across the cross strap there that's running down towards his belt, and then also using the same brown for the base layer on his boots as well. Aside from the skin, that's pretty much all the base colours down, so I'm moving on to the metallics now, and I quite like to give a dark bronzish base to all my metallics. At this point I hadn't fully decided what was going to be a gold or brass colour and what was going to be more of a steel colour, so I was quite happy just to stick this dark bronze down as a base, knowing that it will show up slightly through thin layers of metallic paint anyway. So you've got these dark brown earthy undertones to all the metallics, and it's perfect base for steel or for gold, whichever direction I decide to go on in the future. By this stage I decided that there's very little steel that was going to be on there at all. I was going to go for brass and golds to work against some of the other cooler colours on there, because I think that white and that blue give an overall fairly cool feel. Obviously the blade of these big scimitar is going to be a steel colour, so I'm just working up through bronzes and brass colours now, just to slightly lighten it. And obviously that's called copper there. I tend to find with golds and brasses and coppers, they're a little bit interchangeable with the naming conventions, depending on what paints, what ranges you spend your money on and what companies produce them. Sometimes they will work very, very well as a dull gold, but they may be called brass and vice versa, so don't worry too much about that. But essentially I'm mixing the colours up a little bit. I went for that more orangey copper colour as the pole of the flag, but on the top here, on the little design on the top of the flag, I'm going to go more gold and more of a brighter, warmer gold. Brighter to the top, and giving a little bit of a transition from the lower part of the Sigmar's little flaming fireball there, and much lighter at the top. Hope you can see that there on the screen. And I continue following that pattern and process for the other metallic areas there. So that brighter gold towards the top of that rather nasty looking spike on the top of his helmet. You wouldn't want to leave that on your chair and forget it was there. And then the larger scales on his armor plate there as well. Just making sure that brighter gold is towards the top of each scale, so it looks nicely highlighted without giving it too much detail, to be honest with you. With the shield on the back, focusing that brighter color to the top third as well. Moving on to the steel colour now, so I've got a dark steel, a new true metallic silver, and its highlight. Recently only started using those new Vallejo metallics, the true metallics. I'm not quite impressed with them, if I'm honest with you. There's very little steel on this miniature. There's two kind of belt buckle areas that I've decided to make steel rather than gold, just for a little bit of variation. And then you've got just that tiny bit of the scimitar poking through underneath all those flowing robes, so that it didn't really take very long to layer up with those three paints at all. It's time now to start working on the rest of the highlights on the miniature. So I've got a bone colour there and a white colour. They're on my wet palette. They're relatively thin, and I'm working on the raised areas that are showing through from that underpaint. So I've applied those contrast paints. You can see a natural highlight and shadowed area because of the way they work. And I start on those raised areas and slowly blend out and up, basically. So working with the shadows and the highlights that are already there, and trying to enhance them a little bit, and taking my time, trying not to have to repaint that whole area, using what's there as much as possible to save time. Also because I think it looks great. You get really nice subtle variations from what you've laid down with an airbrush. It's the ability to not have to repaint it all. It saves time, and I think looks pretty cool as well. And I'm slightly edge highlighty here in places, but you're finishing off here most of the time with thin white lines where the light hits the top of those creases. Same process on the white. The way to do white in a really easy way now is to use an airbrush like I did, and then slightly shade with a white contrast style paint, be that Apothecary White from Citadel or the speed paint version that I'm using here. Essentially it's a grey glaze or a grey shade, so it just sort of smooths down your white a little bit and adds a little bit into the recesses, and then just make it pop. Go back with pure white here and catch all those edges, and that's generally enough to give you quite a decent looking tabletop white, which is what I'm going for here. He's a character, but this isn't a painting competition level. None of my painting is really on the channel. I aim to show how to paint nice looking armies, the kind of armies that you've got a hope maybe of getting a nomination or winning a painting award for at a gaming event, but not anything you're going to win any individual painting prizes for. So again, you can see here I'm just working on the flag a little bit, just picking out those brighter areas. To highlight that sky blue area, I'm actually using the Pilar Glacier contrast paint and mixing it with a little bit of white paint, so it just gives you a slightly lighter version of what I've already added, and again being super subtle and just picking out a few edge highlights with it. For the few little yellow areas that are showing, I've got a couple of yellows there for the 2 thin coats range, and I think it's the same yellows that I would have used in my Nan's blades if you saw the Nan's blades video recently, or maybe even the Giant. I've used these colours a lot when I've been painting this army. So just simple layering, highlighting here. There's just yellow trousers and a little bit on the helmet. You can barely see it, and then you've got those yellow tassels. So it's very much a case of working over what's already there, doing a first layer and going back with that brightest area for just a fine little touch at the end. This selection of reds is from the Cool Reds Flexible Triad from Army Painter, the new War Paint Fanatic range, and I think it's the paint number 3 all the way up to 5, so there is a darker shade and a lighter shade, but they're really vibrant, especially from the middle of that little triad. I really like it, and they work perfectly over that contrast base, which was Blood Angels red. So really nice, really vibrant, really punchy, and I'm quite enjoying working with these reds at the moment. The colours are just so strong and so vibrant on the miniature. The method is extremely simple. This is standard layering, highlighting, working my way through those 4 paints, each time making sure the highlight is a little bit thinner, showing the previous colours underneath, and there's nothing more to it than that, but it does produce, like I've already said, a really punchy finish. To highlight the leather areas, that Sigil brown, I'm using oak brown and fir brown, again from Army Painter. There's lots of other options you can use over them. I quite often use 2 thin coats paints as well, and they work equally well, but I've just decided in this instance to go for something a little bit more of an orangey brown rather than a red brown, and these were close at hand, and I quite like the way they look over the contrast paint as well. And just like the red, but with less of them, it's standard layering, making sure that I'm leaving the paints showing through for the previous 2 layers, the contrast layer first anyway, because it gives you some natural highlights based on the way it is over the underpainting, and then thinner layers of each of the following browns. These are the first 4 paints of the Deep Skin Flexible Triad from Army Painter as well. First time I'd used these, wanted to go for a darker skin, a more tan skin, and I thought I would try them out for the first time, and I think they're pretty good. It's quite hard sometimes to do dark skin or know what colours to choose, especially as a Caucasian male. It doesn't naturally form part of my sort of painting knowledge. You have to think about it a little bit more, and the paint sets like this are really handy for it. It's much harder to highlight and work out where light would place in a darker skin. With Caucasian skin, quite often it's all about what you can see through the skin, the translucent skin. With darker skin, it's often about the shine or reflections and things as well, so it can be a little bit trickier. But I didn't do anything different than I would normally do in terms of building up through layering, highlighting, like I've been doing for the last few colours, and they work pretty well. I think it came out exactly the way I wanted to. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll know I often use glazes to add further tone to the skin, and no different here. I've gone for something slightly different than I normally would do. I'm going for Murder Scene. It's a really sort of dark, rich, reddish, purple colour or maroonish colour, and it just works really nicely with this skin mix into the recesses. It was then time to add lots of water slide transfers, decals, decals, whatever you'd like to say, on to the flag, and I emptied or opened my box of great swords and raided the sheet that was in there. Added quite a few different things that are sort of Marienburg-esque. There's a video on my channel which tells you how to apply them properly. I'll try to remember to pop a link in. Then it was a case of adding some basing to the miniature to match the rest of my army, which I do before adding oil washes, because I like to add the oil washes to the base as well. I'm using a sepia style oil wash here on all the metallic areas, and it's just great. It runs into those recesses really well, and you can clean it off a little bit afterwards and wipe it away, and you get this really weathered looking metallic that I love far more than using a standard wash. I even added some as a little bit of weathering around the edge of the banner as well, to make it look like it's been on campaign and on a muddy battlefield. Maybe there's black powder weapons going off around it and staining it. I love that idea of a battle banner like you might see in a Napoleonic battle or Vista painting like that. A little bit around the bottom of some of the robes there, and then cleaning it off a little bit. The joys of the oil paint. If you just dab it on like that, you get this really nice effect.
As I so often do with my bases, I like to add a little bit of dry pigment, brush it into the detail and blow the excess off. I've got 3 different colours that I'm using here. I did make a video on the way I make bases, so if you're new to the channel, I'll try to pop a little link in there now. It just gives you a little bit of my process and my thoughts around making really interesting bases in a very, very simple manner. A few final little effects. I like to add mud splatters onto bases as well, and it was always fun then to add a little bit to the bottom of the clothing. Sometimes I've already added a little bit of oil paint there, as you saw, onto the banner. Well, I've added a little bit of mud splatter and things as well. It just really, again, makes it look like it's in an environment that is a battle rather than on the parade ground, which is the way I like my miniatures to look. And it just adds a little bit extra fun, extra interest. And if you've made a mistake or something, you'd be surprised what you can cover with a little bit of well-placed mud. And then it's nearly done. Time to finish off with a few tufts and paint the base rim black, which I always like to do with my armies. And he's done. And I had so much fun painting this miniature. It's so cool when something special is made like this. He fits the theme of my army perfectly. And at some point in the future, when I finish the rest of the next 1,000 points and taking it up to 2,000 points, I'll put together a full showcase of the army and explain the lore behind it, my ideas around what each character and each unit is within the army. And there is definitely a sort of a Dogs of War theme to my Renegade Crowns army. I think that's partly the way it's designed, and I'm having loads and loads of fun with the freedom that you can have from building an army like Renegade Crowns. And again, this miniature is just fantastic. Thank you so much to Young Duke for spending the time doing this and making a video, and I'm really looking forward to having him on the channel soon to sort of chat more about what he does. And please go and check his channel out, because it's absolutely fantastic. And let me know what you think of the paint job here. Let me know what you think of the miniature. As I said, I'm really excited to build the rest of his unit soon. I've got lots of things on my desk that I need to get done first, but I know which unit he's going to be in, and I can't wait to get them all built and have him in a ranked up unit rather than just standing on his own. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you again to Young Duke for doing this. It's such a wonderful thing to do, to cut up an expensive outer production miniature that was still sealed in blister and then spend all the time doing all the work on its sculpting. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it to bits. It fits perfectly in my army, and I was so pleased that you reached out to offer to do this. It's absolutely wonderful, and everyone should go and check his channel out. There's a link in the video description. Of course, do go and check it out. There's a longer video I've already mentioned that talks about how he makes it in greater detail than he has in this video, and I will be interviewing him very soon for a much longer chat about the hobby, about all of his projects, because the stuff on his channel is absolutely wonderful. Please do go and check it out. So with all that said, if you've enjoyed it and you're still here, do give the video a like, drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support me even further, please do check out my Patreon. I couldn't do what I do here without the support of my existing patrons. They are absolutely wonderful. So do go and click that link and check out all the different tiers and different options that are available there. Also, while you're there, you can click on the link to Counterattack Bases, who are the channel sponsor and make a wide range of gaming aids and even custom dice. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.